Welcome to the Wolf of Queen Street. Welcome to our first ever podcast on YouTube. I am today joined by Sunniva Holt, a self-made millionaire by the age of 30, two self-help books called The Hustle Life and Life on Your Own Terms that you can find on Amazon at the moment. And to anyone that knows my flavor and my style, that's been on the podcast series, that says what they want to say, do what they want to do, and doesn't give a damn about offending anyone else, this lady is the female version pretty much of my persona that I wish I could be. Welcome today, Sunniva. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What an intro.
I try to make sure I do something different each time to put someone on the spot, because otherwise it's quite simple. You see on shows these days where they go, hey, welcome to the show, and then everyone just doesn't start where they want to go.
Yeah.
But I contacted you about a month ago after I'd found you on Instagram and seen the content that you're putting out there and the self-help, mostly for the females out there, to empower them and enrich them with their day-to-day lives and what they're trying to achieve. Can you tell us a little bit, or take us a bit of a backstory, where you found yourself or how you got yourself to that empowerment within yourself so that you can then offer it to other people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a lifelong journey. I have always had a very strong rebel spirit, and also just this desire to find freedom in whatever I do.
Yep. It
didn't matter in what aspect of my life, but that's the thing that has driven me the most. And I grew up in a very isolated, extremely religious family where I didn't have a lot of freedom, and so my first foray into this was getting out of that.
Yep.
And just really finding something that gave me purpose. And it's been, I started off in going into property and buying up properties,
Yep.
and I've found a real passion for that, which I've been doing since I was 19. It's a really long time, nearly 20 years.
Almost dropped the bomb, giving away the age. Don't do that on YouTube.
I think age is something to be celebrated. Yeah.
Or life itself is worth celebrating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so like you said, you were, through your teens, a difficult time period you came to when you got to 18, you were in the property game or started in the property, you found something was passionate about. Now, how did you go necessarily sort of from the property direction to the mentorship and the self-help where you are now? Because property itself is its own kettle. I love property. I love that area. Most people do. But they don't go property and then go into self-help on the other side. It seems left and right.
Except that I did.
This is what I want to find out. This is quite interesting because it's a left and right hand. Right. How did they come across each other?
Right.
Cool.
And because I am 38, when I was 19, Tony Robbins was on infomercials.
Yes.
So
I remember that. I used to watch those. Don't you worry.
Right. And I had.
What do you think that is? That's 2-year-old Tony Robbins. When I went to his show, still wearing it.
Amazing. Right. So I bought those DVDs because getting into property got me into self-help and motivation. I started reading books by all the greats at the time. Tony Robbins was just one of them. There were so many, and I got really into the personal development scene at that point. And I went to a lot of programs and seminars and read, just really educated myself.
Yep.
And always had a passion for it. So it really started back then, and then it was probably around 5 years ago. I was at a real turning point in my life. I had achieved the outer version of success. I'd made the money, I had an amazing family, I had the white picket fence, the kid, the dog,
The dog that you can hear at the moment.
Dog that's yelping in the background. And I was like, well, I'm not really very fucking happy. So what's the point of all this, or what am I missing?
Yeah.
Right. And there was a lot of stuff that had happened in my life. Like I said, I grew up in a very religious family that had brought it many traumas of its own. And then when I was 18, I was raped in my home at a house party that I had. All of these things I completely repressed, never spoke a word about, never talked about, told anyone, and thought, well, if I just ignore it, it doesn't exist, right? Didn't happen. But really it was just eating me up like cancer inside. And so it was a few years ago just realizing, shit, I've got to face off with this, you know?
You got to take it on. Unfortunately, you got to work at it, yeah.
Well, you know, unfortunately, but I think more fortunately, because our traumas can also be our greatest powers and the things that we're able to use to help other people. And so it was in really peeling back that stuff, which was really hard, that gave me a total new lease on life as well, right? I was like, shit, now I feel more alive than I have in years, just from facing off with this and really dealing with this. And when I did, I kind of went full on, which is what I always do. Just was like, right, well, I won't just go and talk to a counsellor about this. I'll go straight and make a Facebook Live to, you know,
publicly announce
everybody. And I did, and it was terrifying and transformative, and that went viral, that video that I came out about what had happened to me, and I had hundreds and hundreds of messages from women saying, thank you for sharing that. I went through the same thing. I've never been able to talk about it.
Yep.
And so I was like, wow, this helps people, you know, being able to share your own trauma is what other people need.
I mean, I take my hat off. I can't imagine the feeling of having, like you said, the Facebook Live, you know, just to say that to one person, let alone to say to anyone that is actually access to Facebook at that stage or was watching the video, to come out and go, I'm going to say my story. I take a hat off, and I can't imagine, you know, the strength you would have had to have shown to have overcome that. And that's why also what you did there, and you got all those messages back from those women, because it is sometimes, unfortunately, we need the one person to have the hurt to help the other people succeed, and for them to say that person is also struggling just like I am. How do I change that? And if they got through it and they can be public about it and they show the ways, why don't I follow it? And I can see from everything you've done to date, you know, that's because you've had, unfortunately, because you've been that one person that has had that hardness and that history that is not pleasant, that people wouldn't want, you've been able to open doors and help everyone else and achieve everything. And it's such a great, you know, it's so great to see that you're offering that to every one of your masterminds and your programs as well.
Thank you. Yeah, but I don't think that I'm special or different. I believe we all have those stories, right? Everybody's had something difficult to go through in their life, or many, many difficult things. It's just that we often don't talk about it.
We're not open about it. And, you know, in the world of social media at the moment, in the last few weeks, I've been going on quite a bit on a rant, whether it's on the podcast with some people, about the control social media, the control Facebook and Instagram, and the expectations of what is actual success. Like you said, you achieved what you perceived as outside success, but nothing inside, and in inner mentality or inner health. That yes, those stories exist. Everyone's got those stories, and we should, in a platform where we can talk freely and openly, we should do that. And people are so scared to do that because we're not going to get likes, we're not going to get comments, or people aren't going to think it's cool to come out and say those hardships. And I can imagine that's a challenge you have with a lot of the ladies and a lot of the people you have in your program, to say, just come out, or just let's work on a way how to say that, or come out and talk about your demons.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have to say that to them, because you lead by example, not by what you say, right? So when I'm able to do this, then it helps other women to feel safe too as well, right? So yes, it is beautiful to watch them and like to see that transformation of all the stuff that you know you think it's hard to come out, right? But it's actually much harder to keep it in because by keeping it in, you don't actually realize the impact it's having on every single element and part of your life.
Yeah, totally. I can imagine. I mean, I've unfortunately got small stories about my life. You know, nothing that's that harsh. And even those things, like you say, sometimes when you think back on, I shouldn't have done this or that shouldn't have happened. It does pull into you, and to let go, and that freedom of letting go is great. So you've got into the stage now. The last few years, you came out on the Facebook Live, did all that empowerment. When was the books that you delivered as well, that you put together? Was that post that situation, or were
It
you
was.
waiting it at that time?
Yeah, I pretty much put out a book a year. So third book, third year.
And keeping yourself to that deadline?
Not on purpose.
Yeah?
No.
No?
Just-
But do you have a hard deadline? Do you work too hard?
God,
Don't you?
no. No, I am a freedom, like, junkie
Free-souled.
in every single element of
I was watching a great clip last night. There's a gentleman called, you might know, called Naz Daily. He became famous. He did a video every single day for 1,000 days, traveled the world and showed us areas and countries that you wouldn't know about, societies that have been knocked down, and cultures and racism and poverty and that stuff. And after 1,000 days he stopped and he said, okay, now he's only doing 1 a week because every single day and traveling is just too crazy. And I was watching yesterday and he said that one of the most interesting things that work to have a hard deadline, because there's days like, if I've got to do content, I've got to do a podcast or make a video every single day. You can imagine on a Sunday after a good Saturday night, the last thing you feel like doing is doing some content.
Right.
So it was interesting to see what he said worked for him. But like you said, you're a free soul, and it's something I've been thinking about lately is at the moment is, again, going on to the social media world and what people follow in. Some people follow large celebrities and go, I want to be just like that person. So I'm going to do exactly what they do. I'm going to post like they post. I'm going to do the videos like they post, and they think they can become those people. But you can't, because you fundamentally, you are your own person, right? I'm me and you, and no matter how we interchange, or if a mate of mine that's a guy and we do the same thing, we're never going to be the same person or someone that we look at. You can only be yourself as strong as you are.
Yeah, and I'm really all about that. I'm all about embracing your weirdness, because we hide it so much and we try so much to be like other people or to follow these strategies and systems. And I really see this in business is often, people that, they're not, their businesses aren't really working that well, and it's like when they are their business, right? It's because they're trying to be like everybody else.
Every other second, yeah.
You're right. And the more you embrace your individuality and pull out what's different about you and what you have to offer, the more successful I believe that you're going to be, but also that the better it's going to feel. And that is just as important.
The raw and honest nature of it, right? To be raw and honest and vulnerable.
And it should feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what's the point otherwise?
I mean, correct. It's a driving thing these days of, to be successful or to be happy, and happy outside, happy internal, and that. And it's dilemmas we all go through at the moment. I can imagine my kids when they're older and in their teens, if the social world is as big as it is now, which is even going to be bigger, where do you find yourself in that place? Where is it in the sense of, what's happiness? Is happiness because I've got 10,000 likes on a photo, or I've been followed by 10,000 people, or is it in the sense of I'm inner happiness and I know where I stand in life, and doesn't really matter on anything else? And it's a sort of challenge I have, with my own kids. I can imagine yourself and with anyone that's around you at the moment to balance that out of teaching people and empowering people to find the right happiness.
Right.
And with your courses that you do at the Mastermind, because you do a Mastermind at the moment and you do one-on-one sessions as well, is it ever driven by, in the sense of people coming to you and say, okay, you're talking about business success, but success by dollar or value? Does someone any time come to you and go, okay, I want to earn more money? Or is it in the sense of you only take on the clients to say, I want to be better at my job?
No, I believe money is really important. I'm all about it. I love money. I do a lot of training on money and money mindset. And I believe everybody should be and gets to be wealthy, right?
There is enough wealth in the world for everyone to be wealthy.
Absolutely is. So I believe you get to have it all, which is another thing that's super important to me. It's like you get to be wealthy and happy. You get to have the family and the success, and you get to have it all on your own terms.
What's your consideration about, depending on what people put on money? So money to help you success, but the perception. So where I see struggle at the moment, like people say, I want to make $1 million.
Right.
But they don't understand the level of what $1 million actually is within the world they do at the moment. So some research I just did, a couple of years ago, I think 3 or 4 years ago, if you earned the medium income in New Zealand, you were in the top 1.32% of the world, right? So 98% of everyone in the world was less off than yourself.
Right.
And another interesting fact within New Zealand, that the top 1% of earners within New Zealand 3 or 4 years ago earned less than $400,000.
Right.
So there's all these people that come out now going, I want to make $1 million, I want to make $1 million, I want to, I want to earn $1 million a year. But when you go and say it, okay, in New Zealand, if the top 1% is only earning $400,000, is your perception, your understanding of that money just so far off than actually where it should be going, okay, how about I would say I want to be in the 1%? Because then in the 1%, I've got the opportunity of a 1%.
Right.
Otherwise, if you want to be 3 times higher than, if you want to be in the 0.01%, is it as attainable or not?
Right. Well, I think to shift the conversation a little bit, it's not actually about the money, right? It's about what is that money going to do for you? Again, money to me means freedom and choices.
Yeah.
So it means I get to do whatever the hell I want. It means I can fly to LA tomorrow if I want to. I'm not tied down to anything. And so it's really important for people to get clear on why do they want that money? Because if you just want that money as a status symbol, then what the fuck is that about, right? If you want that money because you want a better life for you and your children, or to live in a place that feels really good for you, and have that freedom to travel whenever you want and to be able to do more good in the world and to give more money away, then that is attaching an emotional amount to that money, right? So it changes it quite dramatically, right? Money sitting in your bank account does not mean shit, right? You're not going to, get any real satisfaction from that. Maybe like one time because you've reached your goal, and then you're like, oh, what's next? I'm not happy anymore, So that's where I go in with people, is to look at, okay, well, what does that money mean to you? Why do you want it? And what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. That's great answer to that. I totally agree with, the way you telling people and the understanding of money and what it means to them. Like you said, freedom of choices, and it allows you to do what you want. And I totally agree with that.
And buy Gucci.
Sorry? And Gucci. So you're close enough. We're right in on the city, so you're close enough just to go up on Queen Street.
Absolutely.
And if anyone hasn't realised, Wolf of Queen Street, the main street in Auckland City, and to go enjoy, I know the top part of Queen Street's got all the luxury brands up there to go and enjoy your shopping. Yeah. So you said third book you're doing at the moment. You did your first 2 books before, that's done exceptionally well. You can find it on Amazon. What is the mindset of how you put that together, or are you growing and putting the content for a book? I know a lot of people are going, can I do a book? Do I know enough, or can I put stuff together? And then they sit there and 5 years go past and they actually had the content. What was your consideration about putting the book together, and did you ever at one stage go, do I think I can do it and put it together?
Well, the thing is, everybody has a book in them, right? We all have our innate talents and our gifts, and we all have something to offer the world and something to talk about if we allow it, right? And so in that case, it's more like, well, you've got so many books you could write. It's about narrowing it down to one thing. For me, I just let it all flow. I wasn't entirely sure with each book exactly what it was going to look like, or I didn't have a super, specific structure or anything. I just kind of sat down when I felt inspired and wrote until it started to take on a life of its own.
So the gentleman that I had on 2 episodes before, Byron Morrison, has also got a book out on Amazon. And we spoke a little bit about the OCD nature. If someone's very OCD, and he said himself, his book came out 6 months longer than it should have because he overthought a lot of things. Did you, when you were doing your books, did you write it down and look at it and go, okay, if that works? Or did you go back 10 times and go, no, change? Because how was that process of your book? Did you overthink each step?
No, I'm very intuitively led. So it's, again, my number one question in life, and I invite anybody listening to this to try this on, is what feels good? Does this feel good? And that is the same with my writing. When I'm writing it, it's like, does that feel good? Because if it feels good to me, then it's going to inspire something in someone else. Right? So with with that process, when I was writing it's really about getting out of your head, because our minds are made to trip us up all the time, right? Like we go into overthinking, and then we start to doubt ourselves, we start to second guess everything, we start to go into perfectionism, procrastination.
Yep.
And so for me, I've learned to practice like bypassing that ever happening by tuning into here and going, okay, well, does this feel good? And if it doesn't, if it's not inspiring me, then I know that that's not the right words or the right way to say that, and so we'll change it as I go along. But
that's great. It's a great way to see how you put it together. And like you said, if it's not inspiring yourself, it's not going to lead into anyone else. And it needs to feel good what you're doing, not like writing scripture or just putting text down and going, okay, A to B to C, to follow that process. Yeah. So, and we just go from that. Great point in that. Also, we mentioned earlier, and you had the Masterminds at the moment you're doing. Masterminds is quite a big popular word at the moment. It's quite one of the niche words at the moment. As you mentioned earlier, Tony Robbins just released the big Mastermind program, I think 3 or 4 months ago. So everyone's on the buzz about the Masterminds. Talk me through, so a lot of people that listen at the moment, and some of the people that might not know about your brand or your image, why? Because it's such a almost flooded market in Masterminds. What do you think? I'm not saying that yours is flooded. I'm just saying there is a lot out there. I see it on a lot of contacts that I have. Everyone's running it. Yeah. What is the breakthrough space that people that come into your mastermind would say, okay, that is why we're going to come with you, and the biggest achievements that you will give to them when they come out? Okay.
So let's go back to that a minute. So when you say the market is flooded...
I didn't say with quality. I said flooded.
Yes. Okay.
This is going to get good. She's going to get pissy at me. This is going to be awesome.
It is only that the personal development scene is relatively new and growing rapidly. So there's so much more of it in our face that we never saw before, right? What it comes down to, though, is it's not about the course. It's not about necessarily the material, because we can go on to Google and find out any information that we require, right? It's always about the person that's running it, and if you feel an affiliation to that person, if you feel inspired by that person, if you feel some connection to them, like you're not going to go and spend... I remember looking at signing up to a Tony Robbins Platinum Club, and it was like $100,000 a few years ago.
It's about 75 or 80, yeah. It's around it.
And you would only do that because you love Tony Robbins, right? It's got nothing to do with the content. You could probably go and find like his stuff anywhere down. You could probably download it for free, right? And it is the same with my program or anyone else's program. You are going to sign up with that person because of that connection with that person. And if you feel that connection with them, then you're going to learn much more rapidly and take it on board.
I totally agree with that. Anything that I look at in the mastermind space would be, I would only ever join a mastermind myself if I had that relationship. Yeah. I'm very well aware of the platinum membership with Tony Robbins. Quite a few of my friends are those members, and yes, they do it not necessarily for the content, because they get it because they can go and celebrate his birthday with him in his house and so forth. And again,
it's a community too.
It's a community, it's a tribe, absolutely. Right? There's another one that a big one that I support, or I wish one day I'll be knocking on the door. It's called M1 by Rock Thomas. He's March to Millions mastermind group that he's got there as well. And they've got a great setup there. But from what everything I can see from your mastermind, and you said the right things. I wasn't trying to say that there wasn't quality in mastermind or what you are offering, but what was me pushing it for you to say that you are offering a course to someone, or not course, let's not use the word course. You're offering insight, quality, change of life by showing by example and letting people build a relationship with yourself so that they want to learn from you. Not that you're just going to take a book and go, that's what you should do. Just believe me, follow those 7 steps and then you'll be successful, because that's a lot of the shit. Masterminds that are out there going, follow these 10 steps, follow these 20 steps that I followed and became successful. And it goes back to that problem we said before, that I'm me and you can't give me your steps necessarily directly related of how you did it at the right time to make it work. It has to evolve for the person that you're actually helping.
Absolutely.
And you need to have that relationship.
And that's what I teach people to tune into their own intuition so strongly that they don't need me or anyone else, right? Because that is where we should all be coming from.
Yep.
So that is the underlying current to everything that I work when I work with people.
As we coming up close up to the 30-minute mark, which I find is just really great timing for podcasts these days, what is the biggest challenges you're seeing at the moment with out in the social media space, just people out there at the moment that are contacting? What do you think in 2019 is the biggest people, females, I'm guessing mostly female-based, that contact and reach out to you, that's seeking help with, and then secondly, what do you think is the next 6 or 12 months going to look like in that space as well?
Okay. So are we're speaking to the people that are reaching out to me, or
so the biggest thing, just people that's reaching out. What do you see is the biggest thing that's happening in your reach, in your area at the moment in the last sort of 6 months?
Hasn't changed. It never does. It's always that people are looking for permission and approval to do the thing that they know they want to do. Right? So they feel a calling, they feel something that gives them purpose, but they're scared shitless of actually ever taking that step, right? And so they reach out to me kind of looking for that permission or approval to do that thing. And I think that's been the way it is since forever, you know?
You're always looking for an adult or some, like sort of the parent going, hey, you know, can I do it? And it's okay. And you think it's because, do you think it's always been that way, but do you think people are more scared now because of the judgment of social media and how badly they perceive it could go? If I went out and I did something bad and people go, oh, it's horrible. You know, is there challenges as well?
Well, the scene's changed so much, right? Like it used to be that that our parents' generation and their generation would go and get a job, and that was their job for 40 years, right? So now the scene has changed. There's a lot more entrepreneurship, which I am all about. I love that. I love seeing people go out and do something for themselves rather than working for a big corporation. So I guess it's just that people are wanting to follow their passion and their purpose more than they used to, because it feels like social media in itself provides a permission slip. We didn't have the internet I actually don't even know when the internet came about. It doesn't feel like it was that long ago.
Mid to early 90s, realistically,
You know, it hasn't been around that long, and it has given us so much opportunity. Sure, there's always been that fear of judgment and criticism. I don't think that's changed either, though. I think before we were afraid of it, before the internet. I wasn't around then. I don't know. But I feel like it was always from somewhere. It was from your family. It was from your neighbours. It was from your teachers, your school friends, from anybody to go and do something different. Right? Because if you stand out, then you are going to get criticised no matter what.
Totally agree with that. And coming back to it, you said the biggest things are people are saying that they're seeking permission to do what they actually want to do. And we see it all the time. And I'm hoping that from people, that anyone that's listening over the audio podcast or the video, is takes that step and overcomes that fear or that wall that they've put on themselves and saying, I'm willing to do the next step, or I'm willing to change the job because I'm going to do the job that makes me happy and that I'm passionate about, that not necessarily pays, that gives me more zeros, in the sense of, because when I do the job that I'm passionate about, the rest of it will come. The success and the numbers and the finance that are all coming into it. But then you overall, you're more happy in that.
Yeah, I guess it's not making money the top priority, and trusting that money can come as well, right? It's like we were saying before, you get to do what you love and make a shitload of money.
Bonus.
And you should.
So just to end off today, what 2 to 3 minutes, what do you want to have to say about the people out there, yourself, where they can reach you? What are you offering? What's the next couple of months looking like for your brand? If you've got any more of your one-on-one sessions, I know you do your one-on-one sessions, you do your group sessions. I think the last one sold out pretty quickly. Have you got anything lined up in the next couple of months?
Yes, I do. Quite a lot. So I run workshops every few weeks here in Auckland. And then I'm running my only mastermind for this year is coming up when I decide.
Anyone that's listening or watching at the moment, when I put it out, don't worry, I'll put all the links and everything else and then bombard you to make sure that you put it into place.
Oh, no, it will happen.
So that they put some rigor on your free soul.
Yes. No, believe it or not, I do have a certain amount of structure in my life, but then freedom absolutely everywhere else and within that as well. So yes, the mastermind will come out end of September, early October, and then the one-on-one sessions, I do anytime, obviously.
Anytime,
So I work with people all over the world, everywhere.
So the one-on-one sessions, just to say as well, as you said, it was based in Auckland, but it can also be done online. So if you're listening and you wherever you're based at the moment, don't be afraid. You can contact Sunniva, and like I said, the links will be on all the content that I put out, so you can see where you can book the sessions in at the moment. Anything else you'd like to say? Otherwise, I say it was a great discussion today about what you've achieved and the empowerment you've offered to others, the darkness you've overcome and you had to, and publicly speaking about that. And as I said in the beginning, I take my hat off to everything you've achieved in that and stood up and said, I am powerful, I will conquer and I'll be free and do what I like.
Absolutely. Yeah, the only thing I would leave people with is that there is no growth in a comfort zone. So, if you do something that scares the shit out of you, every day, then you will literally change your entire life and you'll change the world at the same time.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.